Hi everyone. So we're just going to recap the blood flow in the chambers of the heart before we go through the blood circulation and we go through the blood vessels. So again, we have a right side and a left side. The right side of the heart would be here, and then the left side of the heart would be here. So the first place that we have the pooling of blood is at the vena cavas. So we have a superior vena cava, which is right here, and an inferior vena cava, which is right there. The blood then pools into the right atrium, and then once you have the adequate amount of blood to open the valve, which is the tricuspid valve, it pools into the right ventricle. Then the right ventricle contracts. Blood flows through the pulmonary valve into the pulmonary artery. The pulmonary artery splits into two, so we have the left side and the right side because we have two lungs, one on the left, one on the right, and the blood goes to the lungs for gas exchange. So right here, this blood was deoxygenated, so high in carbon dioxide, low in oxygen. When it goes to the lungs, it gets oxygenated. So the carbon dioxide leaves the blood and oxygen enters the blood. Then the blood returns to the heart via the pulmonary vein. So again, we have two pulmonary veins, one on the left, one on the right, because you have, again, lungs on the left and the right. They pool into the left atrium. Once you have enough blood pooling into the left atrium, it enters, the bicuspid valve opens and it enters the left ventricle. And then the heart contracts, producing necessary force for the blood to leave the left ventricle through the aortic valve and into the aorta. So if we're looking at the pathway of blood through the heart, goes in through the vena cavas, goes into the right atrium, right ventricle, then the pulmonary artery, gets oxygenated, comes back to the heart via the pulmonary vein, left atrium, left ventricle, and the aorta. So if we're looking at general blood flow through the body, deoxygenated blood is found the right side of the heart. It's pumped to the lungs for gas exchange. At the lungs, we have gas exchange in the alveoli. So carbon dioxide leaves the bloodstream and is exhaled out. Oxygen enters the bloodstream, and oxygen again entered the lungs via inhalation. The oxygenated blood then goes to the left side of the heart and is pumped into the tissues around the body. Once the blood gets to those tissues, the oxygen goes into the cells because you need that for cellular respiration, and the carbon dioxide goes into the bloodstream because that is, again, the waste product of cellular respiration. And the cycle repeats. So again, the whole purpose for the blood circulating to all of the cells of the body is so that you have the oxygen needed for cellular respiration. And again, cellular respiration is the biochemical reaction where the glucose that is consumed by the food that you eat, the glucose that you get from the food that you eat, plus the oxygen that you get from inhalation, is burnt. So the glucose is burned in the presence of oxygen that occurs in the mitochondria, and you produce water, which is then uptaken from the body. You produce carbon dioxide, which is a waste product that needs to be removed from the body, and you produce energy, which the body converts it into a form of ATP, which is kind of like a energy battery storage that your body uses for all cellular functions. So in actuality, your body kind of has like two distinct circulatory system sets in one, and it really does depend on where we're going. The pulmonary circulation is really focused on blood getting to the lungs to become oxygenated. And the way to remember that the pulmonary circulation has to do with lungs is think of the word lungs in French as poumon. So anytime you have the prefix pulmonary, it has to do with the lungs. So your pulmonary circulation is really this part of the circulation system here where you have blood coming into the right atrium, going into the right ventricle, get pumped to the lungs, get oxygenated, and then enter via the left atrium. The systemic circulation is really looking at bringing that oxygenated blood to the tissues in the body for nutrient exchange. So the systemic circulation really starts at the left atrium and left ventricle, and then going to all of the tissues in the body, and then coming back to the heart. So really, it's not like two distinct circulation systems. It's just what part of the system that you're looking at. The pulmonary circulation, you're really looking at blood getting to the right side of the heart, going to the lungs to get oxygenated, and then coming back to the heart. The systemic circulation, you're looking at the oxygenated blood gets to the left side of the heart, pumping that blood to the body for cell exchanges, and then returning to the heart. So this is a really interesting photo that we have in the textbook that shows this circulation, the circulation circuits. Now what we're going to be looking at is the three types of blood vessels that we have in our body and their key functions. So our first key blood vessel are arteries, and arteries bring blood away from the heart. Lots of key distinguishing features about heart arteries is that they have very thick and muscular walls because they have to be able to withstand very, very high blood pressure. Veins, on the other hand, bring blood back to the heart. So their walls are usually thinner. The blood pressure that they're exposed to is usually lower, and they actually have valves to prevent backflow because veins tend to actually have to work against gravity, so they have to bring blood back upwards towards the heart, so they need valves to prevent it from going backwards. Capillaries is basically where gas exchanges take place. The walls are very, very thin, so it's only 1 cell thick. And this is actually because of diffusion. For substances to leave the bloodstream and to get into cells, they can only move over very, very small distances. So the thinner the cell wall, the easier it is for the substance to actually leave the bloodstream and get to where it needs to go. The pressure is actually very, very low. And it's low because it needs to be slow enough for this exchanges to take place. So here we actually have the breakdown of our arteries, veins, and capillaries, their function, and their key characteristics. So again, arteries take blood away from the heart. So arteries A, away A. Veins bring blood to the heart. Capillaries is where our exchanges take place. And then our key differences between all of those blood vessels and their key functions. And we can see here our arteries, veins, and capillaries. We can see that our arteries are very thick, very muscular, and the muscular nature of the arteries allow it to expand when there's very high blood pressure. Veins, we can see it's also muscular, not as muscular as your arteries, and then they have the valves to prevent blood from flowing backwards because with our veins, they tend to actually have to work against gravity. So you usually have veins that are bringing blood back up to the heart. So you need the valves to make sure that the blood is going in one direction. And then we have our capillaries that are 1 cell thick. And the thinner it is, the easier it is for diffusion to take place. So here we actually have an image of 3 blood vessels. So this one right here is an artery. We can see that it's very, very thick walls and it has high blood pressure from the heart. So we're just going to highlight this in red to show that this is an artery. We can see that our blood vessel over here is a vein, and we know that this is a vein because I have my telltale sign right here of a valve. And the valve is again to prevent from the blood from flowing backwards. So we're just going to quickly highlight this in blue. And then our third key blood vessel that we have is our capillaries, very, very thin walls. And we have this for gas exchange. And we're just going to highlight this in purple.